It's another fantastic day in the wonderful world of wealth tech. Welcome to episode 78 of the Wealth Management Today podcast. I'm your host, Craig Iskowitz, and I run a consulting firm called Ezra Group. We are experts in everything related to wealth tech. We deliver growth-oriented solutions to banks, broker-dealers, asset managers, RIA aggregators, as well as their wealth tech providers through our premium advice and targeted market research. On this podcast, I speak with some of the smartest people in the industry who are on the leading edge of both technology and innovation. And please, as always, remember to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. I would greatly appreciate it. This is an awesome episode. I'm really excited by this. We recorded this a couple months back for the Morningstar conference, and it is a very meta podcast because it's a podcast about podcasting. That's right. A podcast about podcasting. In this podcast, I interviewed, so I'm not the interviewer, but I'm one of the interviewees, Marie Swift, president of Impact Communication, one of the premier marketing and PR firms in our industry based out of Leawood, Kansas, is the interviewer. And she's interviewing myself as well as Cathy Curtis, who is the principal at Curtis Financial Planning in Oakland, California. And she is a financial advisor, and she has her own podcast. So it's two podcasters talking about podcasting. We cover things like how we got into podcasting, the recording equipment we use, other software, how it's all set up, how we find guests, how we distribute and promote our podcasts, how we structure the content, things like how to be a good host, how to be a good listener as a host, how to ask the right questions. So it's a really great interview, a very great discussion about podcasting. If it's something you're interested in, I think you will get a lot out of it. So I'm going to get this started, and then I'll be back on the other side with a quick summary.
Well, hi, everybody. We're so happy that you joined us for another special session here in the Social Digital Hub. At least we're pretending like we're in the Social Digital Hub. It would have been so great if we could have all been together in Chicago in June at the Morningstar conference at the McCormick Center, but COVID and all that. So we've got the next best thing, which is a virtual conference coming at you in September, thanks to Morningstar. And we're going to try and replicate what we would have done had I had Cathy Curtis and Craig Iskowitz with me right there in the Social Digital Hub. So, hey, Craig, where are you calling in from today?
Hey, Marie. I'm calling in from beautiful East Brunswick, New Jersey.
All right. I'm in beautiful Leawood, Kansas. And how about you, Cathy?
Hey, Marie. I'm in Oakland, California.
Well, and you guys can notice, show your T-shirts, you guys, since we're on video. Posture, Superman pose. We're all wearing our Social Digital Hub T-shirts, right? Because we're in the spirit for Morningstar. And
Definitely.
We're doing a video about podcasting. And Craig, you're actually podcasting right now, aren't you?
I'm recording. I'm recording this for a podcast. So yeah, this is going to be podcasted at some point later.
Yeah, we'll figure out a way to slice and dice this great content because we want to talk about how you two are using podcasting to build your authority, to build your business, to kind of be famous, right? So, good information can come out in a podcast, but people get a sense of who you are, and it can be a little bit longer format than a video, although this video is going to be 30 minutes. So I guess there you go, right? So let's get you talking about the benefits of doing a podcast, Craig, because I know you've been using podcasting as a part of your just building your presence. So what are the benefits you've seen? How long have you been doing it?
I've been podcasting. We were just talking about this. I started last February of 2019. And I've had a blog for 13 years, which I write on a regular basis. And that is great for marketing. I run a consulting firm called Ezra Group. So we work with banks, broker dealers, asset managers, and lots of fintech firms. So getting the word out is important. And I found a blog is very helpful, posting thought leadership content, gets people to know who you are and what you can do. And the podcast seemed like a natural extension of that in a different format to deliver content to people who maybe wanted to listen to the sound of my dulcet voice rather than read my words.
So talk to me a little bit about how you do podcasting. And I mean, I've seen you in action because you and I have done some podcasting live at a conference together a
Yes.
couple times now at T3. So tell us about your equipment, your thinking. How do you get your arms around all this?
The thinking is it was easy, and since I already did a blog and I was already putting some content out, but it was as we were discussing before, it was kind of on a whim where one of my clients, Cheryl Nash from Tegra 118, said to me, well, we were doing a strategy project for them, and she said, you should have me on your podcast. And I said, well, I don't have a podcast. I got to start one to have you on it. So it's sort of like, well, I would need to start a podcast now so I can have people on it. So there wasn't that much of a plan. And when you start, you don't really need any equipment at all. Everyone's laptop, as long as you have a laptop, and almost everyone has a laptop, use the microphone of your laptop. And I just used Zoom, which was the video conference technology I was using. But we're on GoToMeeting now. You can use Microsoft Teams. Any of these tools have recording capabilities, and you're podcasting, right? So you don't need any special equipment. I went and bought a microphone. So when I started, I bought this microphone, which is a blue Snowball. It's called a Snowball microphone, and it came with this little pop shield, which is so your words don't, like your P's don't pop in the microphone. I think this was $80, and it's got a little stand, and it goes right on your desk, and you're good. But you don't even need this. You can use a headset, which I've used before, my Jabra 65 headset. This works great. And a lot of my guests will use this. When they call in, they sound fine. So you don't really need a lot of equipment to get started on podcasting.
Yeah.
But the thing you see here, this is a Rode. Oh, there you
Mm-hmm.
go. That works too, right? Your headset from your iPhone. Yeah. This I bought for you, Marie, because we wanted to look the same when we went podcasting together conferences. So this is a Rode Podcaster microphone. It's about $200 on Amazon. Then this is a shock mount to keep it from if the desk shakes, it doesn't shake in a Rode. Let's see this Rode arm here. It's about $100 also on Amazon. So all that stuff together, that was a $350, something like that. Yeah, so there
Yeah,
you
so
go.
that plugs right into your Mac, right? You're using a laptop.
Well, yeah, that I don't want it to get too complicated, but you don't really need this. But if you're gonna buy this, you got to buy something to drive the audio. So I only bought this because you wanted me to, and I have a big box over here. I don't want to pick up my laptop. I have a big mixer this is a special kind of connector called XLR, and this XLR, they have XLR right to USB, but it doesn't sound real good. So you need a mixer to boost the audio of these kind of mics and also drive the power.
So this is what I'm using right now. This is like $80. It's what you see here with the pop shield.
Yeah,
It plugs right into my Mac. I also have the fancy one, the $200 one that we plug into the mixer when you and I go podcasting. But we're actually
right.
giving one of these away for anybody who goes to our special, I guess it's a virtual booth that we're going to get as a part of the Morningstar conference.
Oh, great.
You can sign up and get all our free handouts and stuff and our equipment list, but we're giving this away. I bought it. I'm giving it away. So
That's
be sure
perfect.
you go and whatever the portal is that you'll see somewhere on this screen, Morningstar will tell us, and just download the handouts because they're good in and of itself. But we'll also throw you in for a drawing for this awesome podcast microphone set. So that's fun. So tell us how long you've been podcasting and what is some of the things that you're learning or seeing or enjoying the most?
Okay, I am a brand new podcaster. About 4 months now. I've done 6 episodes. And the reason I started is I've been blogging like Craig for a long time. And I have a newsletter and I post on social media. But I've been noticing this huge upsurge in people's interest in podcasting. And I don't think it's dying. I think it's going even further. I mean, Michelle Obama starting a podcast at the end of this month. And I'm thinking maybe people are listening to more podcasts during the pandemic. I know I am. I take long walks at night and I'm listening to podcasts now. And I'm kind of a late starter on listening to podcasts. So I thought, during this pandemic, I want to try something new. I want to stretch myself. And people have been encouraging me to do a podcast for a long time. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go for it. And I have a marketing person that has been encouraging me too. And she said, Cathy, all you need to do is start on Zoom. And I said, you're kidding. And just like Craig, I have spent no money. Zoom makes it so easy. It produces an audio file and a video. So I'm doing both audio and video. I upload to YouTube. And I'm finding that my listeners like video. So I think I'm going to continue doing both video and audio and see how that plays out. And I thought that was kind of interesting because I'm able to populate my YouTube channel now, which supposedly is good for search, right? So that's an added benefit there. And I love doing video. I like watching people's reactions and things like that. So I'm going to continue on that level. And then I have a podcaster friend recommended this microphone, which is a Audio Technica ATR 2100 USB. And I think it works
Say
quite.
that again, Cathy, because you turned it away.
Yeah. It's it's an Audio Technica A2R 2100 USB.
Boom, we got it.
And it's got the little stand. And I plug it into my Mac desktop. I'm using a desktop every time I Zoom, not a laptop. This is my home office. The red walls with this may be a bit much, but I think the red walls are pretty, and I'm ready to go.
So how do you pick your guests? How do you make them sound good? How do you pick your topics?
Good question. So I decided, since I am an advisor that works mainly with women, and so I want to amplify women's voices. So that's my goal. And so I originally started with a good friend who's a very interesting woman because I knew it would be easy for me. And it was like my test run. And that was so much fun. And I got a lot of great feedback. She has a big social media presence. So I got a lot of listeners, and I have a big social media presence. And then I interviewed another advisor. I just did a bunch of young people of color, young women, and talked to them about personal finance. So I don't really have a particular strategy honed in yet, but except that I know I want to amplify women's voices and talk about money and their lives and how they intertwine. That's my goal right now.
Yeah. So what's the name of your podcast and where is it hosted and all that good stuff?
It's called Financial Finesse, and it's hosted on Libsyn. And I'm on Spotify. And okay, this is a good one that I'm trying to figure out for the newbie podcasters. Getting on Apple's podcast platform is proving to be challenging. So
How do you get on Apple? Craig, jump in here.
I can help you with that, Cathy. So we'll take it offline. It's a bit of a process, depending on how your podcast is posted. So and where it's hosted. So I've got a degree in computer science, so I do a lot of these things myself. But even I have to go out to experts when there's problems sometimes, because either I don't have the time or I don't know enough about certain things. But for example, I don't know where you host your podcast, but I host it on a website called Blueberry rather, BLUBRRY, Blueberry,
Okay.
without the E, Blueberry, and it's $20 a month, and you get I forget how many hundreds of megabytes of space, and then they will then distribute your podcast automatically once you set yourself up on Spotify and iTunes and a couple other distribution channels.
Oh,
So I have
okay.
to upload I have my podcast team. They upload it right to Blueberry, and once they hit publish, it just goes out. But you have to set it up first. So you have to configure, go to Apple, the iTunes, and register as a new podcast.
Right.
Get the information, plug it into the right places in your infrastructure. Like I use WordPress for my blog. So there's a reason I pick Blueberry is it works very well with WordPress. If you don't use WordPress, you may be looking at something else.
I do use WordPress.
So you might like
Yeah.
Blueberry. It's got a WordPress plugin, and we're getting really
Oh.
technical here. So there's a plugin on WordPress that shows you when you do your blog posts. Like I post the transcript to all my podcasts on my blog,
Ah,
and people like that. So you're giving
yeah.
people lots of options for interacting with you. Some just listen on their iPhone through iTunes or whatever podcasting app. Some can go to our website and go right to the blog, and there's a widget. So Blueberry has a WordPress widget that pops up, and you can click play and play it through your computer
Oh, that's
as well.
cool.
Yeah, so it gives people lots of options for listening to the podcast, and then we post the entire transcript as well in there. And there's a little plugin at the bottom. You click on it, it opens up Blueberry window. You pick your podcast and kind of go. So,
I'm doing that.
so one tip for doing your podcast is you can have subcategories or sub brands of your podcast, and do a little series. So like a series of information about, you may do an insurance series of your podcast where you just do insurance for a couple episodes, or you might do long-term care, or you might do 401ks for a couple episodes. I'm thinking the
Right.
advisor side. So on my B2B, because we sell to banks, broker dealers, asset managers, and fintechs, we did a winners of wealth tech, people who we felt had made a difference in the industry. And again, we were trying to keep it 50-50 men and women. And we gave it like a separate hashtag and made like a separate brand inside of the podcast. And it's kind of fun. Doesn't cost anything, but
Right.
it gives people a different reason to listen. And when we would announce who the winner this month is, people would get, congratulations, you're a winner of Wealth Tech. I'm like, woohoo, you're a winner.
That's great.
So nice little thing to get more interaction with your podcast.
I want to add something, a little problem I've been having. And Craig, you probably know the answer. And in fact, we talked about this a little bit via email. I did a panel, and I love panels, but it's problematic in that you got to make sure everybody has good lighting and good sound. And also the other thing I just learned is you have to tell people, keep your answers on the relatively brief side, because I don't want to go longer than an hour. Or you have to spend a lot of time editing, which I had to do on my last one, and that took forever to do. So those are some of the lessons I'm learning, is give your people you're talking to some good parameters. And then the sound thing, I'm not just so sure. I was on Kitsy's podcast. He actually mails a headset to
Yes.
you
Well,
and
he's
lets you
professional.
keep it. And it worked great because he wants to make sure the sound is good.
Yeah, he's way professional about it, more than I am. And I've had him on my podcast twice.
Okay.
And he always sounds great. And that's one way to do it. I mean, but that's his business, right? He's more of a media business
Right.
than I am. But I had considered doing that at some people because sometimes the sound was bad. However, I think, as with all things digital, COVID has really changed that. Before COVID, I did have a lot of problems with people not being on a good headset, being in a noisy room, not having a good background. Because I started shooting the first half of my podcast, I didn't do video. I only did audio. And then I realized that why not do video, because it's another piece of content. You're doing the same thing. You want to repurpose your content. Another thing about your podcasting and about anything you do content-wise is repurpose. It's like the old adage, what's the secret of real estate? Location, location, location. With content, it's repurpose. So if I can shoot a video,
right? You're spending so much time doing it, you might as well.
Yeah. So you're right to do video, and it's going to be a little bit more editing. Yeah. And I think more people. I haven't really found anybody who doesn't have a good background, doesn't have a good microphone these days, depending on who you're interviewing. But we do have a standard. My daughter Alana, who's our digital content coordinator, she has a standard email she sends to our guests, and it's got a whole list of things. Make sure you're in a quiet room. Make sure you got a headset. Make sure you tested your internet connection. All those different things. And I don't like to do much prep for the podcast. Usually I'll do some research And usually the bigger companies will want some prep. Like I interviewed Lauren Wilkinson, who's head of advisor tech at Schwab, and their PR was like, "Oh, we have to have a big meeting beforehand." I'm like, don't worry, you're going to be fine. I know what I'm doing, and they was fine. So how much prep you need to do is what you feel comfortable with. I feel more comfortable with less prep
Mm-hmm.
because it's more spontaneous that way, and it doesn't sound rehearsed. I don't want it to sound like a sales pitch. I want it to sound more like a conversation. And
Me too. I totally agree with you. Because I listen to podcasts and I don't like the ones that sound like they've been practiced. And
Mhm,
some of them, maybe they feel like they have to because the information is very technical,
mhm.
or their guests insist on it. But I like the whole conversational aspect, and you really never know where it's going to go,
Mhm.
which is I think fun for listeners too.
I want to take a break from this episode to talk about one of my favorite charities. It's the Invest in Others Charitable Foundation, which is a charity that amplifies the efforts of financial advisors who give back to their communities and communities abroad. Invest in Others provides a platform for financial advisors, their employees, and their firms to increase awareness, visibility, and funding for their favorite nonprofits. Over the past 14 years, Invest in Others has given more than $3 million to 300 plus charities across a variety of causes, including health and wellness, education and youth programs, arts and culture, hunger and poverty prevention, and military, veterans, and more. For more information, please visit investinothers.org. Follow them on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and please make a donation and check if your company will match your donations. You'll double the benefit. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Hey, I have a tip. So a little bit of acting is a good thing. So if you tell your signature story and you just kind of race through it, and usually people are like, oh, that's so profound, but you race through it. I mean, have a pregnant pause every once in a while, raise your eyebrows, do a little bit of like, it's not like you're phony, but like go ahead and be into it, raise your voice, your energy. And if you're on camera, you got to play to the audience, right? So I'm enjoying talking to you guys, but I know that thousands of other people are going to see this. So I think there's a
Right.
little acting and how you inflect your voice and your body language.
If you hire a podcast person to edit for you, there's an option in Zoom that says record each participant in a separate file.
Okay.
What that does is it creates a separate M4A for each person that you're talking to. And then because each person will have a different level. I've got this microphone, you've got that microphone, Marie's got that microphone. So
Exactly.
this way, my podcast person or the person you hire each file is just that person's voice. So they can set the level just for them.
Okay.
Rather than one big file, you got to set the level once and everyone is all messed up, right? Because it's different.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's how to solve that panel discussion issue.
Right.
Yeah, that's
If
great.
people have different sound, like I'm being really loud, I'm on that microphone, I'm really far away, you can't hear me. So the person if you use that setting in Zoom, each person with a separate file, you send them to the audio person, they'll line it all up in their program and then adjust the audio.
Hey, I want to
Yes,
jump in,
you,
you
in the
guys.
upper right hand corner, Marie, you're next.
Hey, thanks for calling on me. I wish we were having an opportunity to clink our coffee mugs together,
Oh,
but have you got yours? Okay.
can
Oh,
you
look
do
at you. Oh, a Morningstar mug, a mug of
swag?
and an
Swag
impact.
from a past Morningstar conference.
Oh, look at you.
Isn't that
Wow.
cool? This is my favorite coffee cup.
I should have had my Morningstar pop socket, but I left it at the office. I just have like the plain one. But so I'm doing a podcast for NAPFA where I'm the host and I have a producer. He happens to be my son, Johnny Swift. Go figure, these millennials
Oh,
know technology.
Johnny Swift.
that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. And he's been taking orders from me for 30 years. So he's a really good employee too. But, I kind of like the guy, but he recommended we use Zencaster because we didn't want to do video. We just wanted to talk to people. But Craig, to your point, it has the two separate soundtracks. So if I cough and we don't want to stop the person, Johnny just says, hey, just ignore that. He's going to cut that out. Or if a dog barks in my background, he's just going to cut that out. So everybody has their own soundtrack. And then he edits on a Mac using GarageBand. And
Oh, okay.
on the headset, and he just does his magic. We laid in, I recorded the intro, here it is, Mindset Mastery, brought to you from, NAPA, the best fiduciary organization, yada, yada. I gave their commercial. And then I host somebody as my guest, and we talk about mindset and mastery. So we have a theme, we have signature music, we have the intro, and then we have the graphic that Johnny put out on all the Spotify, Apple. I think he hosts it on, it might be Lisbon, but he changed a couple of times. So anyway, I'll put some of this in the crib notes, whatever we're going to put to go with this so that people have a sheet of resources. But that's how we're doing it for NAPA.
I want to say that I'm so glad I started this podcast. It's really a great way to build community. And in these times when a lot of us are socially isolated, we're working from home, we're sheltering in place, doesn't look like the pandemic's going away anytime soon. It's just so much fun to be able to reach out and communicate with people and get their voice, get my voice out there, get their voices out there. And I'm just enjoying it and so happy I did it. And if someone's thinking about doing it, don't hesitate because you think it's going to be too costly or too difficult, even if you're not technical. And I'm not technical. I'm a financial advisor. This is not what I do for a living, but I'm learning how to do it. And there's so many great tools out there right now.
Awesome. Craig, final words of wisdom.
Yeah, I would agree. If you're thinking about it, just do it. Don't worry about technology. Don't worry about equipment. Just record it on your laptop. Use your headset that you normally talk to your clients with, or or other contacts, and it'll be fine. People expect podcasts not to be professionally sounding, and as Cathy said, that if it's too professionally, it sounds weird, and people don't like it. So it's even better just to use your phone. You can record on your iPhone or your Android phone. You don't even need a computer. There's a lot of tools out there and apps that you can do that with. So it's easy to get started. You don't need a plan. You can just wing it and see how it feels and go from there. We have it way more official, and we've got a part of our marketing strategy, and we've got guests, and we line things up, and we've got all these other things. But you don't need to do that just to get off the ball. The first step in any journey of 1,000 miles is the first steps.
One thing we haven't talked about yet, and I'll just throw this out here as a couple of quick tips, is if you're kind of a dry, boring person, you'd like to try this, get a co-host, like get an Ed McMahon to you.
Great point.
Have somebody else like who's a little bit lively. Like I'm working with a CPA attorney, and he loves to talk about tax strategy. And we're like, you want to do a podcast? So we're talking about getting a co-host who's kind of bouncy and fun, who's going to help cut him off and bring him back on track when he goes into the tax code, because that's for him to know and for us to know that he knows it, right? The other thing is, I was talking to Pam Kruger, who is known for her PBS specials. She did the Money Track special for many years, and now she's got this thing called Wealth Ramp. And she said, Marie, you don't have to do this forever. You could just do like 3, like a series on a thing, and then say that's all the podcasting I'm going to do. So think about that for what it's worth. And one more little, I'll give a shout out to some people I like. Top Advisor Marketing, Kirk Lowe and Matt Halloran. Those guys are awesome. If you're watching this and you're thinking, man, I just want the white glove service, work with Kirk and Matt at Top Advisor Marketing. They'll do everything soup to nuts. They'll get you set up on Apple. They'll produce it. They'll push it out on social for amplification. So a little shout out to those guys. They're doing great work. And they only work with advisors right now. I think they have plans to conquer the universe. So this has been so much fun, you guys. Thank you.
So fun. I learned so much. It was great.
All right. So shall we say goodbye?
I guess.
Parting is such sweet sorrow. Until next time.
This was fun.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Craig.
Hey, it's Craig again, and I enjoyed listening to that back. I haven't heard it in a couple months since I initially recorded it, and lots of really good stuff in there. I take a couple notes I think you should too. Definitely about if you're interested in podcasting, some of the things we discussed, that's very helpful. And anyone who's interested in podcasting, if you have any questions, you can always send me a quick email, Craig at EzraGroupLLC.com. There's also plenty of resources online. I know I looked at a couple of great articles, one of them written by my friend Michael Keatsis. You can check his blog. He wrote a great article about how he started in podcasting, and he's been doing it for a couple of years longer than I have. He's much better. So we definitely take his advice. And that's about all. So remember, subscribe, share everywhere you can our podcast. We appreciate it. And we'll see everyone again next time.